fun. Social distancing. It's really not fun. And it becomes especially difficult when you're trying to use public transport. That's where an e-bike like this one can come in really handy. But this e-bike is a little different from most e-bikes. Now, I've already made quite a few videos on this bike, but I've made some updates to it and I want to share them with you. This guy's trying to race me. No match for me, whoa! This bike has two 10 amp hour batteries. One is located here and another is here to give a total of 20 amp hours and a 72 volt lithium ion battery pack. It has a 3000 watt hub motor in the rear and a 60 amp speed controller in the front. This setup gives me 40 miles per hour of a top speed with about 35 miles of range, going something like 25 miles per hour. So like I said, this first battery is here, the second battery is here. They're taped together and mounted with some aluminum. And then there's an Arduino and a little circuitry thing going on in here to control the custom lights that I put on it. And then this up here is a voltage regulator which puts the 72 volts down to 12 volts, and then I have another one in here which puts the 12 volts to 5 volts. Charging this bike is also super easy. I just have these two chargers right here which both plug into this plug right here that I made. I take off the charge plug port connector thingy, take this, plug it in, push it on, twist it on to lock it in place. And then we can go over here to the chargers, and sure enough, they're both charging. So they both charge at 3 amps. I have two chargers because I have two batteries. It's not really ideal, but when I was making this bike, the only batteries that were available were 10 amp hours, at least from buying locally in the US. So that's what I did. I bought two 10 amp hours and put them together. Film. Frame, it has a steel frame with full suspension, so it's got a rear shock, a front shock, and they're both adjustable, which is super nice, so I can change the damping and the stiffness coefficient of the springs, which is super cool. And yeah, the shocks give it full suspension, which gives it a super smooth ride both on and off the road, which is super nice. I also put on this new seat, which is a motorcycle style seat. It's much bigger than the normal bike seat, obviously. Because before it was just a normal bike seat post, which was kind of ugly and not super comfortable. So this is a lot better, although I did have to modify it a bit because the way it normally mounts is much higher up, and so the bike was way too small. So I had to put in my own structure with some 80/20 here. So I just finished installing these pieces of 80/20 right here. And essentially what it does is it takes the entire seat and it moves it from resting up against this and it moves it back. And then I also have these two little pieces of plastic as well to act as shims. And what that does is it kind of gives the seat a bit more of an angle. So now the seat sits relatively flat, which is nice, and it's way farther back so that I can fit on it because I am 6'5" and the stock placement was nowhere near good enough. This bike uses a cycle analyst display which shows you your battery voltage, your watts, power draw, your range, how far you've gone essentially, the speedometer, the amp hour use, and yeah. So when I give throttle, you'll see the power starts to increase a bit there. If I give more power, you'll see it go way up. And then when I use my regen, you'll see it go negative, which is pretty cool. I'll show that again. Accelerating, kind of coming down a hill here. Start using the regen, and you'll see it goes negative 300 watts, which is pretty substantial actually, which is pretty cool. So another really cool thing I added is this remote LED setup right here with this remote. So any one of these buttons turn on the lights on the bike in different ways. So currently I have A set up to turn on the front fog lights and the rear tail lights. So those fade on, which is really neat. Another cool thing I added are the hazard lights, so we can turn those on. Which is kind of cool. Well, something else I've been doing lately is riding my bike around with Uber Eats delivery. I'm literally just doing it for fun. I'm not actually doing it for the money. In fact, I feel kind of bad when I get tips because, like, I'm literally just there for the fun. Like, one time some guy gave me like a $7 cash tip and I was like, nah dude, I'm just doing it for the fun. But I think he took that the wrong way. Don't forget a mask, people. Taco Bell. Do it. So if you're looking for a safer form of transport, an e-bike is really something that you might consider. It also kind of offers kind of a form of escapism from this crazy world we're living in. So consider building yourself an e-bike or buying one, and go out and have fun. I have yet to meet anybody who has ridden an e-bike and not had fun with it, so consider that. Anyway, thanks for watching, bye. Up next to you, I'm like, oh, that was fun.